Sam.
And this is Gabe.
And this is Coaster Wars.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Coaster Wars podcast. We apologize for the short hiatus for the holiday, but it is 4th of July. This is America, and we celebrated like we meant it.
Yeah, it's just it's part of our lives. So it was only a 1 week though, and we're back with a special episode for everyone.
Yes.
Gabe made it out to visit me, and we went to Salt Lake City, and so we got to make it to Lagoon Amusement Park in Salt Lake City, Utah. And to be honest, it was a bit of a surprise for us.
I think it's the second weirdest amusement park I've ever been to. I'm definitely strange would describe this place, that's for sure. It's kind of a tale of two different parks almost.
It really kind of is. It's got permanent roller coasters, some newer roller coasters, but then what's interesting about Lagoon is that about half of their coasters were originally traveling coasters. So they're these really fun, quirky little rides.
Yeah, that is for sure quirky. Yeah, sure. We'll go with that.
Okay. Well, since we're talking about this park, me and Gabe figured we'll give a quick overview of the park itself, do a rundown of the coasters, and then we'll get straight into it with our number one, which we will get into momentarily.
Yes. So my overall general consensus is this is actually a pretty good park. I said it's weird, and it is. It's the weird thing about it is the collection of coasters they have, and two of them being almost in-house designs. It's just a weird collection of coasters. It's a very weird shaped park, and it's got some really quirky, kind of unique things. The first thing is there's like no queue lines in the entire park.
Yes.
So you just line up in the midways, apparently. That was something that was new to us. Just overall, though, I thought it was a really well-rounded park, though, for what they have. On paper, it's a pretty weak lineup. I will say that. When you look at it on paper, you go through and you look at each ride. But when you actually get there and you start experiencing some of these coasters, it definitely kind of surprises you a little bit.
Absolutely. That's kind of what I was getting at when it said that it surprised us is, like Gabe said, he was not expecting much from this lineup. And honestly, I really wasn't either. The reason we went to this park is for the stable. It's called Cannibal. And so we were like, that's why we're going.
Cannonball.
It's Cannibal.
It's Cannonball. We were calling the coaster the wrong name for like literally half the day until we actually got on it and then saw that it was not Cannonball. It is Cannibal.
Yes.
So just a FYI there.
Yeah, if you hear Gabe if you hear Gabe say Cannonball, he's talking about Cannibal. But yeah, so that was the ride that we were going there for. We knew that one was going to be good. We did not expect some of the other coasters to blow us away as they did. So why don't we get into this lineup? Why don't you start us off, Gabe? Start wherever you want.
Well, so I'll just go do a general overview. So you have, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have 11 total coasters. One of them is a kiddie coaster that we did not ride. Mm-hmm. And then I think they actually have... Oh, no, we did ride 10 of them. Okay, so yeah, we rode the Bat, we rode Bombora, we rode Cannibal, we rode Colossus the Fire Dragon, we rode Jetstar 2, we rode Primordial, which is a kind of a roller coaster dark ride thing. Roller coaster is the only wooden roller coaster there, and it is called Roller Coaster. I was actually told some of the locals refer to it as the white roller coaster. Apparently it used to be white. I didn't know that.
Okay.
And then there's Wicked, and then there's Wild Mouse. So those are the coasters. One interesting thing that you will look at in this lineup is there is not a single B&M or an Intamin in this lineup at all.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't believe there is like any major roller coaster manufacturer on this list except for Jetstar 2, which is a Schwarzkopf. Well, the rest of them are...
Would you count Vekoma?
I suppose, yeah. Vekoma is the Bat is a family inverted coaster from Vekoma.
Yeah.
So, or suspended family coaster.
Yeah.
Vekoma though is kind of more of an abstract company.
Yeah, that's a very
you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a very good point. It's it's not very high on the roller coaster manufacturer list when it comes to major parks in the United States. So,
but we're gonna start at the top with Cannibal because me and you agreed. Obviously, it's the best ride in the park. First thing I tell people about Cannibal is it's not even close. Like, this thing is an absolute animal. So we're looking at a roller coaster that stands 208 feet tall, reaches a top speed of 70 miles per hour, features almost 3,000 feet of track. However, the kicker is the 116-degree vertical angle for the drop. And it is insane.
It's just stupid.
Oh my gosh.
It's just dumb. There's no reason.
Pictures do not do this drop justice at all.
No,
seriously, you guys have to come out. This is a coaster that we are. So I don't know about you, but I'm currently considering it for top 15. I still got to figure out where it's going to slot in. But this is a bucket list coaster. Would you not agree with that?
Oh yeah, it 100% is, as Gabe said, because he flew out, so it was 100% worth his plane ticket. I had to drive 7 hours, so it was worth not only his plane ticket but my 7-hour drive. If you guys can make it out here, you have to ride this ride because he is totally right. Pictures, reading stats, even watching a POV does not do this coaster any kind of justice. It is insanity.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing we got to talk about right away is the restraint system. Now, you weren't a big a fan of it. I don't know. You were kind of complaining about it a little bit. I really enjoyed it because it was just a lap bar.
When was I complaining about it?
Maybe you were complaining about Wicked. It's the same restraint system, though.
It's because Wicked was older. Cannibal was more comfortable.
Well, they're the same. It's just, I don't know. You're weird. Whatever. Anyway. It's the lap bar experience, so there is no over-the-shoulder restraints, and there's 4 inversions on this roller coaster, 2 of which you take at incredibly slow speeds.
Yes.
So, should we just go right into the layout on this coaster and just talk about it a little bit, and then?
Yes.
Okay. So this coaster, like I said, starts with the 208-foot tall drop, and you go immediately into an implement loop. I cannot talk today, apparently. I always think there's a P in there, but there's not. Anyway.
No, there's not.
And after that, you twist around and you pop up into a dive loop. Coming off the dive loop, you do get a really, really good moment of ejector airtime pop, and then that sends you up into an overbanked curve, which sends you up into the block break. After the block break, you slow all the way down basically to almost no speed at all, and then you kind of roll out of it. That's when you turn and go into the Lagoon roll, which in my opinion is actually the best moment on the ride, not the drop. We can argue about that in a minute. Because the Lagoon roll actually features 2 different inversions. So it actually does a full almost barrel roll or inline twist. However, you only make it about 3/4 of the way through, where then it stops and rotates back the other way through a full inversion. And then after that, you go into a 450-degree helix to end the roller coaster. So that being said, it is a shorter layout. However, with the mid-course brake run and the very, very long, drawn-out Lagoon roll, it does feel like a longer ride experience. It doesn't feel short.
Oh, yeah. And something that I don't even know if you mentioned, Gabe, but something we also have to say about this is that it does not have a chain lift. This is an elevator lift system. And that is another extremely interesting part of this ride. So like if we're going through this layout and really talking about it, that is the beginning of your ride. And basically when you're loaded into the station, there is, because the elevator system is obviously in a building, and you can see it in any picture of Cannibal as well. That is your elevator lift system. So there's a door that like cuts it off so you can't see, but then you're brought into this building. And first of all, it's completely dark in there. You can hardly see anything. And then you're brought into position and then hoisted up on this elevator that, first of all, is very quick. This thing is it's 208 feet. So it brings you up that 208 feet so fast that you do not even realize that you've been brought up that high. And then at the same time, it has this like tilting action as you come up. So like right there, it just great introduction to this ride. And then as you come out, you're then looking over this drop. And I would really have to argue with myself, as Gabe said, on what would be the best moment on this ride because of that drop. It is 116 degrees. It feels like you're being
The
brought upside
problem
down.
the problem I had with the drop is it was almost too quick to really. I mean, it's a really good drop. Don't get me wrong,
Oh
but
yeah.
it's kind of over. And the other part too is it is trimmed really heavily, so you don't get the full like launched out of your seat until you're actually in it. I don't know. I just
Yes.
really the lagoon roll is really something else. Just the hang time, the lap bar where you truly. This is one of the few coasters I've ridden where I've like had to actually tighten my lap bar halfway through the ride experience because I thought it was too loose.
Yes.
That doesn't happen. That does not happen very often where you feel as though you need another click.
Yeah, I think that's what makes the Lagoon Roll so absolutely insane is not just the type of inversion it is, it's the speed at which you take that inversion. It's the restraints on a roller coaster that is literally just a lap bar. There's not even a seat belt. It's just a lap bar. And then, as a little side note, too, as part of the decoration, you're also going over water, too. It's just like the entire experience of this one single inversion on this ride is absolutely crazy.
Yes.
There's no reason. There's no reason. That's what I keep telling people. There was no reason. It's just stupid.
It's stupid fun, though.
Yeah. When I say that, I mean that in the best way possible.
And then the other thing I never realized too until we rode this coaster is that 450-degree helix is forceful. Like when this thing is. Here's the other thing too is we got to ride this thing. It was 97 degrees or whatever it was. It was hot as hell.
It was hot as hell, but it also was like a full sun day.
Yeah.
So like it was even hotter in the sun, I swear to God.
And then we made the mistake of waiting till mid-afternoon to ride it. So of course it's all warmed up and everything. But that helix moment is a very forceful and intense, like G-force filled moment. Like this roller coaster is just so well-rounded between the inversions. It does have a couple of very small airtime moments, and then the G-forces, and obviously the extreme ejector airtime on the first drop. I mean, it's just a very, very well-rounded coaster, and they packed this all into less than 3,000 feet of track, which is just insane. I mean, it is a very good ride experience.
Oh, yeah. Talking about the forces in that helix, there's only one other ride that I've ridden that's made me gray out, which is the pullout on Millennium Force, and this ride makes me gray out at that helix point.
This is a coaster that we're talking about can compete with Cedar Point coasters. I mean, can compete with Great America coasters, can compete with Great Adventure coasters. Like this is a top 5, top 10, depending on what you like in a coaster, where you could argue this is a top 10 ride in the US. Like seriously, this is a very good ride experience. We cannot talk about this coaster enough.
It is very true. You very easily could plop this in the Cedar Point lineup and it would stand at the top of that list.
5. It would be top 100%. 5 for sure. You know, I'd put this up with Maverick. I'd put this up with Steel Vengeance. I'd put this up with even like a Millennium Force. I think the biggest thing hurting this ride experience is its location. It's in the middle of Farmington, Utah. Not everybody's heard about Lagoon. Or if you hear about Lagoon, it's like, there's one coaster there. I don't really want to travel out just for one coaster. And not everybody's crazy like me and you. But
in my defense, I went to other places besides just Lagoon. But yes.
Oh, yes. Yes, for sure. But it's a really good ride experience. Like I said, very well-rounded. I think the only thing this ride experience is missing is probably just a little bit more floater airtime, but I feel like that'd be almost asking too much of this thing. you know what I mean? Honestly, it's got every other force you can ask for, hang time, ejector airtime on the first drop, positive G's, laterals. You get some really good laterals. I really liked the second inversion, the dive loop. I felt like that was very whippy going into it.
Mm-hmm.
So not only do you get the hang time as the upside down part, but you also get the laterals as it flips you over. I thought it was a very whippy ride. I think that's a good way to describe this coaster. Which
and
was very surprising.
Even with its intensity and the whippiness that it does have, it has a certain level of rewriability too. I mean, I guess it's kind of like the inverts, B&M inverts.
Yeah.
We got dizzy after, but I didn't feel like uncomfortable or anything like that. It was just a matter of my brain not being able to handle this damn thing.
Yeah. It is very Maverick-esque. I think it's a good comparison, even though it's 100 feet taller and the inversions are massive on this coaster compared to a Maverick. I'm trying to think of what else we could pair this coaster to, but it does have like a intimate vibe to it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really kind of does.
Like old intimate vibe, like not new intimate.
No.
Like old, like I said, Maverick, or even like a Sky. Is it Sky or not Sky Rush? What's the other one at Hershey Park? The launch one?
Nope. Oh, the launch one is I think it's Fahrenheit 451.
Yeah, that something like that. Kind of that.
Oh no, it's Storm Runner. I think it's Storm Runner.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it does kind of feel a little bit like that, where it's kind of quirky. Has some unique things that you wouldn't find in other coasters, and then just the overall stature of this ride. This is probably one of the more intimidating coasters out there. Just looking at it.
Yeah. We went up in the Ferris wheel to get pictures of some of the rides and stuff, and the Ferris wheel just coincidentally is like right next to Cannibal, and like it's still imposing at the top of what was like 150-foot Ferris wheel. Like
oh yeah, like it didn't even it made that Ferris wheel look tiny.
It did. We didn't think it was that tall. I remember because total sidetrack here. We were from the line of Cannibal. I believe we were watching the Ferris wheel go around, and then I saw one of the cars spinning, and I wanted to ride the Ferris wheel, but then I saw that, decided I didn't want to ride the Ferris wheel, but we did it anyways. But so I said it looked really high. Gabe said it didn't look that high. I ended up having to look up the actual height of it, and for sure enough, it was like 100 and some feet. It was
150 feet was the Ferris wheel,
and yeah, Cannibal still towers over the dang thing. Yeah. So
the other thing I do want to talk about with this coaster, and this is kind of more of your niche, but the theming was really well done. I really enjoyed the rock work and the waterfall, and then how it kind of like swoops by the waterfall.
Ooh,
and then
yeah.
The lagoon and stuff. And then just some of the decorations they had in the station, like it felt very tribal, and obviously that's what it's themed after. And then they had the drums playing too in the elevator, remember?
Yes. Oh my gosh. It actually was it was really funny because when we first got up there, because we thought it was called Cannonball, we were very confused by the theming, but we're like, whatever, we'll go with it. And then we looked at the sign and we're like, oh,
like, that's not how you spell cannonball. Wait a minute.
Theming made so much sense. But yes, Gabe is very right. They built a beautiful rock facade for this like coaster to basically weave in and out of. Like I said, in that elevator, they have like temple decorations, and they have those music playing the entire time that you're lifted up. And there is an actual running waterfall. You actually get splashed by it. You get close enough to it as you run through that section of the ride. It does. I will say that the permanent features of this park do have some very good theming.
Yes, for sure. And I think that's a kind of an underrated statement on this coaster is the overall theming. And I can't say enough about this ride. This thing blew us out of the water. I mean, we knew coming in like this thing is really good coaster. And a lot of people talk it up, but man, was it just a really, really good ride experience. I want to go back out there and ride it again. I'm coming back out.
All right, plan another trip. Yeah. It is actually really refreshing to have a hyped up coaster actually live up to that hype.
Yes,
so that was really nice. And then as a total like side note, as I just thought of, I talk about the names of coasters and how sometimes it fits really nicely with the actual ride experience that you get. And I think this is one that fits that mold very, very nicely.
Yes.
I mean, if you think about running from Cannibals in the Amazon, like that would be a super intense experience. And that's exactly what this ride does to you.
Yeah, it's a very good ride, but we're going to run out of time if we don't talk about the other coasters. So
okay, I suppose.
So the next one I was going to talk about, and this is kind of where me and you are going to split a little bit. I really enjoyed Wicked. I felt like it was the second best ride in the park. I don't know if you want to talk about Primordial next or...
No, we can go ahead. We can go ahead and go into Wicked, and then I can talk about Primordial and Colossus.
Okay. So Wicked is...
Sorry, go ahead.
So Wicked is a Zire or Zier. I don't know, another German manufacturer. Can't pronounce it. Anyway, 110 feet tall, top speed of 55 miles per hour, and that is a top. Well, that's not the top launch speed because the top launch speed is only 40 miles per hour, I think. I don't know. Anyway, it has one inversion and it has a 90-degree drop. Now, this coaster is the tale of two coasters, basically. The first half, absolutely fantastic. The second half, I think they ran out of ideas and just put track in. Honestly, that's what it feels like.
It really is, because you get this amazing launch in the beginning, and you have that 90-degree drop, and you have some great forces, and then you go into the second half of this ride, and you're just like,
is this
what?
a K coaster or what's going on here?
Oh my gosh. It was really... Go ahead. We can talk about it more after.
So this coaster has a 40 mile per hour launch, which then transitions into a vertical launch. So it actually launches you straight up 90-degree vertical up over this like really compact top hat thing. And then you get a 90-degree descent on the other side. That is followed up by a really good speed airtime hill and an overbanked turn, which leads you into the best zero-G roll I've experienced in a long time. And after that, you turn around up into the mid-course brake run. After that, you go through 2 turn thingies, one more airtime pop, and then you end up back in the station. So, like we said, the first half is really good. That top hat with the vertical launch and then the vertical descent is extreme ejector airtime, especially when it's running good, because it's such a tight like little tower thing that they built for this coaster. And it's just a car, so it can actually maneuver tighter turns and stuff. But it is one of the best airtime moments. There's nothing else really like that I've experienced where you're actually getting launched up and over this top hat thing.
No.
And then, like I said, the zero-G roll is one of the best I've experienced in a long time. I mean, I would compare it to like a B&M zero-G roll, and I don't do that very often. The rest of the coaster is there. It exists.
Yeah. I will say this. We rode this once. We absolutely loved the launch and everything in the beginning half, hated the second half, but we still rode it again. We rode this at least 4 or 5 times throughout the day, I believe. And we did go back and get another ride on this coaster later in the day when it was a bit more warmed up, and it still did nothing for that second half, unfortunately.
It did have some weird kind of little lateral moments. I will say that was kind of unique to the coaster. It was just a very forceful 2 couple elements. The airtime pop at the end, that was pretty good. That was a nice little floater airtime moment.
Yes.
But the problem with this coaster is the first half is so good with the launch, the speed airtime hill, the overbank turn, and the zero-G roll that you're just expecting to get something on that level in the second half, and you don't. It just kind of falls flat on its face a little bit. And that's where I kind of say you can argue what the next best ride in the park is, depending on what you like, because there's roller coaster, which I thought was really good. And then you have Colossus, which is like one of the most forceful coasters I've ever experienced, and it's Schwarzkopf. And then you have Primordial, which is like the high tech, computer nerd simulation thing. It's like,
yes.
So you can really argue what the second best ride in the park is. That's kind of how we started with Cannonball. To me, this was the second best just for that launch. I'm a launch person. I like my launches, and this was actually a fairly intense one, I thought.
I actually agree with you, and I think with my list, Wicked would still come at second. That second ride did make it a little bit better, and it's one of those things where I love Primordial. I love the technical aspect, and I love the few little roller coaster-y elements they kind of threw in there. But in terms of a full roller coaster experience and a thrill ride, Wicked is definitely the better experience. So
it's a really good launch. I love that vertical top hat launch thingy. There's nothing else like that.
There really isn't. It is a completely unique experience. And as I think me and Gabe are discovering, is we really like a good launch.
Yes.
And this is one of the better ones that we've experienced.
Yes,
so.
for sure. Moving on, though, we can talk about, let's talk about Primordial, because that thing is a whole nother freaking animal all on its own. So this roller coaster was finally completed in 2023, so it opened last year. It's only a year old. Max height is 85 feet. Obviously, it does not drop that far. And a top speed of 40 miles per hour? Really? That can't be right.
At that beginning,
Helix. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But this coaster is not just a coaster. So it is a roller coaster / shooting dark ride / family coaster. So it's not designed to be a thrill ride, I will say that.
Yeah.
However, the technology that has gone into this roller coaster dark ride is insane. And the fact that it is basically an in-house construction makes it even that much more crazy.
Oh yeah. When it comes to dark rides as well, there is also nothing that I've ridden that is anything like this.
No, and the other cool thing about this coaster is another one that features like insane theming, like almost like Universal Disneyland theming level.
Yes.
And it's a really cool experience. I'll let you talk about this one a little bit more because I feel like you enjoyed it a little bit more than I did.
I loved this ride so much. Oh my gosh. So this ride is called Primordial, and Gabe said that this thing is all about the theming, and he is totally right. So we're going to get into it, and then I'll get into the ride experience, because your ride experience actually begins in the queue line. And when you get, I will say this too, part of the queue line goes through a building that is air conditioned.
Yeah, whose idea was it to make it go inside the building and then back outside? Somebody messed up there. Like, they should have made the whole thing indoors.
Honestly, it would have made so much more sense. But yeah, they have a little facade building that you go through that is air conditioned. But the part here is that there is what's called the Cat Queen. And it's this big, gigantic Cat Queen animatronic that tells you the story of Primordial. And basically, the characters are a dragon that symbolizes the day, an owl that symbolizes the night. They've been captured by darkness. We no longer have day and night, and you need to help save them. Now, Gabe warned me about this Cat Queen. And when we got in there, I didn't think it was so bad at first, but as an animatronic does, she kind of moves her head around to like look at everybody.
Looking at me. I did not appreciate that at all.
It
was like checking me out. I swear to God.
It is eerie how she would make eye contact with you as you are in this building walking through the line. It's actually slightly terrifying.
Yeah, just a little.
Just a little. Yeah. So after you've made it through this building, which not only is the Cat Queen animatronic, but they also have a whole narrated and like mini movie that plays to explain the story. So then you eventually make it to the station. You load into what are 4-person and they're 2 cars on one train. So, and they're these really wide ones, but they do that because of how this ride is designed, and I'll get into that in a second. So you're brought up this chain lift hill. It's max height of 85.3 feet. And then you drop down into basically what are this one's more of a left banked turn. And then you get into a helix that ascends and brings you into the building. And then you do have a little bit inside right and left turn. And then you're brought into what is the shooting section of this ride. So you're slowed down almost to a stop. And then, so these cars are facing forward on what is the regular track. They are actually turned sideways. So you can face these screens and shoot at these screens. So your first round of shooting goes through, and then you're actually spun backwards. And then you're sent through a little roller coaster section backwards, which Gabe told me these cars spun. He did not iterate how they spun. So he's just like,
oopsies.
You should have heard him describing this to me. He's like, well, it's kind of a roller coaster, kind of a dark ride. It's a shooting ride. It spins. It goes backwards. And then there's a surprise at the ending. I'm not going to tell you about that. I'm like, great. This is great.
This is a coaster where you're better off like experiencing it with zero knowledge.
Yes.
Because it
Yes.
is a lot more fun that way than knowing what's going to happen or whatever. And even at the end, you don't always necessarily know what's going to happen.
Yes, and I will get into that.
Yes.
So after your backwards section, you pulled into another shooting section. Your cars are turned sideways so that you can shoot at some screens. They're turned in the other direction. And then you come into what is the final shooting section. It's the boss fight. What I will say is, before I get into this is a spoiler alert. Like Gabe said, it is actually better to go into this ride without knowing what's going to happen. So if you don't want to know, just kind of skip this ending part. I'll put in the description a little timestamp on where to go so you don't hear any of this. But if you are here, you've ridden the ride, or you just don't care, here is what the ending is. So this ride has what is technically 3 different endings. And basically, you go into the shooting section, you're maneuvered into place, and then you shoot at the screen, you do the final boss. And what would normally maybe just lead into the station instead has a grand finale with basically a drop track. You either drop straight down, or you're leaned backwards and dropped backwards, or you're leaned forward and dropped forwards. And you only get one of these 3 endings. You have to ride it multiple times to see the other endings. Thankfully, me and Gabe experienced the backwards, and we just experienced the drop track. We really wanted to do the drop track.
The really neat part about this whole ending scenario thing is what happens on your screen and a couple of the special effects and stuff actually change depending on what. So you can kind of figure out what ending you're going to get like about 3/4 through the ride, because there's a couple different little things that change. There's like an animatronic statue that actually like completely is different if you get a different ending.
I want to point out, they hide it very well. I had no idea that could even move. We came through the second time and we're like, wait, that's different. That wasn't there before.
And so the ending that you're going to want to attempt to get is probably the drop track. So when you get the tilt deck, it doesn't drop you as far. It's definitely a weird experience though, like getting tilted, like basically falling over almost in a roller coaster. But the drop track is a 30-foot just straight down drop track, and that was really, really good. That was probably the best moment on the ride, in my opinion. Is just you roll forward, you shoot, it turns you back, and then all of a sudden you just drop 30 feet by basically the snap of your fingers. It's a very cool moment. It's a very good way to end a very interesting ride experience.
Yes, very much so. So, and that's basically the end of the ride then. And something I did forget to point out is this is one of the rides too where you wear 3D glasses.
Yep.
So those screen shooting ones are also in 3D. But that's basically the overall ride experience. I think it is a very well-rounded family coaster. It is great for kids, but also has enough thrilling elements to entertain adults. I mean, we rode it twice, and I think the only reason we didn't probably ride it more times is just because of the line. It's the newest ride there, so it had the longest line.
Yeah, I had the 2 biggest complaints I had about the ride, and it all has to do with the dark ride sections. Number 1, I felt like the shooting aspect could have been done a little bit better. The problem they have, or the issue that you have, is the mobility of your shooting gun laser thing, whatever you want to call it. Because it's a roller coaster, they had to like lock it in place so you can't just like fall off the roller coaster. And because of that, you don't have a ton of articulation and aiming ability. And then my second complaint was the storytelling once you're on the ride. So you have this really cool moment where you're like getting stared at by a cat, and then you go into this entrance, and you have this really cool ambiance, and then they lift you up, and like they have all these projector screens and this really cool fog and everything. But you get into the actual shooting or the ride experience, and you kind of lose that story a little bit. It just becomes like basically an arcade game. And I just wish there was a little bit more storytelling during the actual ride. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not, but
No, it does. Gabe's very right. Is basically in that cat room, you get like a giant exposition dump, and then you go into the ride. Like he said, there's quite a bit of really good theming that kind of sets the tone of where you are in like this evil, poisonous swamp. And then, like he said, it's just screens. There's enemies for you to shoot at. I mean, even some other rides, and I guess like some other shooter rides, like the one I always think of is the Spider-Man one that was at Universal. Me, Gabe rode a lot
yeah,
as a kid.
there
It
actually
had
was some storytelling there.
yeah, it had characters that talked to you from the screens. Like there was more than just enemies to shoot. And so I agree with Gabe that you lose a bit of the storytelling then. It's just, like you said, it turns into more of an arcade game. You're more focused on shooting. And a little bit of it comes back, I feel like, in that very last grand finale where you are freeing one of the creatures. But that's all the way at the end. There's really nothing else in between. I mean, even that animatronic statue that switches out, it would be cool if it just like it said something to you or just did a little bit more than just stood there. So
Yeah, I think that's something too. Who knows? Maybe that's kind of why the ride got delayed, is they had to take some stuff out. Construction delays, all that stuff. That being said, that little asterisk or whatever. The amount of computer technology and programming and just like the timing of the trains. The other thing too, the capacity on this thing, you hear, each train only seats 8 people, but they will send like they can run, like, I want to say it's probably got to be like 15 different trains on this damn coaster. Like they were pumping people out. Hey, here's another thing we got to talk about. Lagoon, they need to like educate all of the Six Flags parks on how to do operations, because they were
my gosh,
killing it. They were murdering those dispatch times. I mean, every coaster, even like Bombara, the little family coaster, they had us in and out in like 40 seconds and dispatching out of the station. Like every coaster was really good. Even, some of the smaller coasters that you kind of just ignore, you put the worst crew on, so to speak. Like even they were nailing dispatch times. Every roller coaster at this park was just really on point. And that goes for this ride as well. They were really nailing their dispatches. The rolling station is another thing we kind of forgot to talk about.
Oh,
that's
yeah.
A really
my
cool,
gosh.
Yeah, this ride is there's just a lot.
Yes.
There's almost too much. There's almost too much.
I know. So that is a very good point, because Gabe did mention at the beginning how there's not really any queue lines at this place, but at the same time, they also don't really need them. We talk about the lines spilling out into the midways, but I mean, the couple times that it did, first of all, for Primordial, they know that happens because it's their most popular ride, so they had a whole thing set up for that. And then like with Cannibal, I mean, the couple times that it did, it wasn't that long. It was maybe like 10, 15 people out past the queue line. So,
and they were murdering dispatch times too. I mean, they had that coaster in and out. I mean, we were cruising through those lines. I was very impressed. We'll just say that. Yes. I was very impressed for kind of a family-owned local park. They were doing a really good job.
Yes, very much so. But with that, why don't we talk about Colossus the Fire Dragon?
Yes, the Schwarzkopf traveling coaster that has found a permanent location here at Lagoon. A top height of 86 feet and a top speed of 49 miles per hour. Features 2 vertical loop inversions and some of the most intense G-forces you will find on this planet.
It was actually slightly terrifying.
Yes, this is a coaster where you questioned whether or not it should even be operating.
Oh my gosh.
So I did hear a story about this coaster. Now, I don't know if this is true, and I also don't recommend trying this, but supposedly there is a few maintenance people that would ride this coaster without a lap bar.
Oh my gosh.
And not fall out, because it's all about G-forces. There's no airtime.
Oh, they're very brave. They're definitely maintenance guys, though. That makes sense.
The other story I also was told about this coaster is that somebody put a quarter in the palm of their hand, left the palm of their hand open throughout the entire ride experience, and the quarter was still there when they finished the ride.
Dang. Now, see, that's easy enough to test. That's not risking your life. That's just risking yourself a quarter. You could do it with a penny if you wanted to.
Yes. But that being said, this is a G-force filled roller coaster.
This was a personal favorite of mine, to the point that after our first ride on Wicked, I almost thought it was better. So I loved this ride, and I don't know why, but I did, and it was just so much freaking fun. So why don't I go into a quick layout of this guy real quick? So you come out of that station right into that lift hill, and you drop off of that drop. It is banked to the right, so it's not straight down, but you do get to that top speed right away. And as a total side note, really quick, in the station, it tells you not to put your hands up on this ride. And
do not put your hands up. Listen to that damn sign. Seriously.
You will understand once you go through this layout, but because it's a traveling coaster, everything is very compact and very close together. And yes, Gabe is very right. If you put your hands up, you will probably lose some fingers. So don't do it. As a warning, you actually listen to. But you drop off that lift and you are sent right into those concentric loops, right? And they are right one after the other. You go through one, go through the other. Now, to talk about these loops really quick, what Gabe was explaining to me is that modern loops are more elliptical or oval in shape. So basically, you go up and you kind of hang at the top for a little bit, and then you come back down.
They're basically designed to maintain the same amount of G-forces throughout the entire loop.
Okay.
Is how they're designed to. That's why you use kind of that teardrop shape. They're not a perfect circle.
Yes.
And the reason they do that is to eliminate the entry and exit G-forces. Basically reduce those and increase the G-forces at the top of the loop. And then that's how you get that feeling of the same amount of G-force through the entire inversion.
Well, these ones are exactly what Gabe said, are perfect circles. So you come flying into this thing and you are just pressed into your seat the entire time, all the way around. And this is why Gabe was saying that the supposed engineers or maintenance men were able to ride this coaster without the lap bars, which also should be said is the restraint system on this is just a lap bar. And with Lagoon, you feel like you're going to fall out of the Cannibal, you feel like you're going to fall out of your seat. That is not a problem on this ride. You are continuously pressed into that seat through both of these loops. And as you come out of that second one, you are then thrust into a very low to the ground banked left turn. You then come up. It's basically like a helix that ascends and descends. So you come back down to the ground, and then you get a bit of a straight track, and then you're going to the right. And this is another helix, but this one descends all the way to the ground, so close to the ground. If you are riding on the right side of this train, like, I'm a shorter person, so I didn't have that much trouble with it. I then made Gabe ride on that side of the train, and he's like, he thought he was going to knock his head on the ground. You are so close to the ground, going so freaking fast, and you're like tilted so far over. It is just stupid. It's ridiculous. So after this really low to the ground helix, you come into that final brakes, and then you're brought back into the station.
This is a coaster where you feel like you're going to lose your head, your fingers, and your toes all in the same moment. Like seriously.
It is ridiculous. And being a Schwarzkopf, so this guy was built in 1983.
Actually, no, it was built in 1981. It was traveled for 2 years, and then that's when it found its permanent spot at Lagoon in 1983.
Okay, still 1981.
So this coaster did travel for 2 years.
Okay, that's cool. So,
this is a coaster that has a lot of history, a lot of importance. I don't want to say importance, but just being a Schwarzkopf looper with the concentric loops, and then the fact that it actually did travel for 2 years before it found a permanent location is just kind of a really cool little piece of nugget history there. And it's just something I really love about coasters. So
well, and riding this coaster, as kind of a side note, not really related to Lagoon, Gabe was telling me about a ride, I think he said it's called Olympia, that is over in Europe. It is a Schwarzkopf
Olympia
looper.
looping.
Yes. So it has 5 loops, and that guy still travels. So you can go on a little roller coaster scavenger hunt if you're ever in Europe to go try and find this coaster.
Yes. But with that, let's move on here because we're going to be running out of time pretty quick. We're already at 45 minutes. I want to talk about roller coaster. I want to talk about the 100-year-old relic. I guess that's the only way to describe this dang thing. That this park features.
Okay. Before we get into this, so me and Gabe have talked about a roller coaster earning ACE landmark status, which is a coaster acknowledged for its historical significance within the roller coaster community specifically. This coaster, however, is old enough that has earned a National Historic Landmark status.
Yes.
So it is nationally protected by the government. You cannot tear it down, which is crazy for a roller coaster.
But this coaster was constructed in 1921, so it is officially 100 and what does that make it 103 years old now?
I believe
102 years old, something like that. I can't math. Anyway, it has a top height of 62 feet, a top speed of 45 miles per hour, and it is about 2,500 feet of wood. Now, obviously, this coaster probably does not have a single original piece of wood on it. It's been rebuilt several times. In fact, at one point it was burnt down. Well, half of it was. Anyway, So this coaster has stood the test of time. I just really think it's cool. It's 100 years old. I can say I rode a 100-year-old roller coaster. And then it is a Woody as well, obviously. So that is another little moment. But I thought this coaster featured some really good airtime. I was kind of surprised. Some janky airtime. That is this park. This entire park is janky.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I will say this, we wrote it at the beginning of the day and weren't too entirely impressed, but we also gave it the benefit of the doubt that this is a 100-year-old roller coaster. Well, our second ride on it was much better, very much better. So
absolutely, it had some really good airtime moments, has some really good laterals. It is very rough though. Be prepared to have your teeth knocked out of your head on this one. It is
we joke that it's Mount Olympus rough.
Yes, it is Mount Olympus rough. But it is 100 years old, so let's come on. I mean, if I was 100 years old, I probably couldn't walk. So let's just be nice to it, you know?
Well, and being, honestly, even though it's rough, being 100 years old, obviously it's kind of went through the gambit of different trains. And so now it does have some GCI trains on it that I'm sure are much more comfortable than its original trains.
Absolutely.
So that's an added benefit, is that even though it's rough and janky and it's a fun ride. Like Gabe said, it's really cool to say that you've ridden a 100-year-old roller coaster. And honestly, it does have a pretty good ride experience. And then I will say this too. We didn't see it at night, so I don't know if it's lit up, but it's right at the front of the park. You get an amazing view of it from the parking lot. So it's actually kind of pretty to look at.
Oh, absolutely. I think the biggest thing with roller coaster is just the history. I said, Colossus, the Fire Dragon, has a little bit of history. Roller coaster has a ton of history, because of who designed it, when it was built, the amount of times that it caught fire and then had to be rebuilt, and then the amount of time and energy and just love that has been stored in this roller coaster. It felt like it had a personality. This is a coaster you could say. Like, it felt like, that 100-year-old grandpa, back in my day, we used to ride roller coasters without seatbelts or lap bars, that kind of thing.
Yes. Oh, my gosh, yes.
Just, a really, really fun roller coaster. I made you ride it a second time just so I could ride it again. I really enjoyed it.
after that first ride, I wasn't too entirely impressed. I wasn't really raring to go for a second ride, but I was like, whatever, we can do it again. And that second ride was honestly so much better. So that is the key to this roller coaster, is to let it warm up and let it get up to running temperature.
Yes.
It makes it a better experience. But another thing I'd like to point out too is that the entire theme of this roller coaster basically is just that it's a 100-year-old roller coaster.
Yes.
In the station, they had a big 100. And then a cool thing too, like if you're sitting in line, which you don't have to do very much with this ride, but they had a whole timeline set up from when this was built to different events that not only happened throughout the years, but also with this coaster, like Gabe said, it did half burn down at one time. So that's all in this little timeline. So you can kind of read up on the coaster while you're waiting for your ride.
Yes. But with that, we got 10 minutes left, so we're just going to do our general opinion of this park, and then we got to do...
Wait, no, I got to talk about the wild mouse. Just for 2 seconds, please.
Fine. Okay.
I will
the wild mouse is another Mauer, so another German manufacturer, built in 1998, top height of 49 feet, a top speed of 228 miles per hour, and this is the most aggressive wild mouse we have ever experienced.
Abso-freaking-lutely. This is another traveling coaster, and I just wanted to point out a couple things with this ride. First of all, when you're going through those 180-degree turns at the very top of this roller coaster, it feels like you are pulling the entire track with you. It is so sketchy. I can't believe this thing hasn't broken yet, honestly. It is absolutely terrifying. And then there is a fun little tunnel part with some great little airtime hills in there, which was unique. I've never seen that on another Wild Mouse. I did want to mention that the cars were probably some of the coolest at this park because they all looked like they were hand spray painted or airbrushed.
Well, from far away they looked cool. Don't look at it close up. But...
Yeah, don't look at them too close. And then the other thing I want to point out is that with this ride, it is a 4-person car that you are riding in, but it has one lap bar for the 2 people. And when a person of my size gets next to a person of Gabe's size, I had a good 5-6 inches between me and that lap bar, which made this an even more out of control experience. I am surprised I did not die on this ride. So with that, we can can get into the overall of this park. I'm sorry, I just had to talk about that for a second because that was like a personal favorite. I loved that so much.
So my general opinion of this park, I feel like it's not a great adventure or Cedar Point, let's just be honest, but I'd put this on the same level as like a Six Flags Fiesta Texas or like a Knott's Berry Farm, where it's more of a local park, more focused on local, your local customers and your everyday family goers. But that being said, it is kind of a tale of 2 different parks. So like I said, you have the janky side of the park. You have Wicked, you have the Wild Mouse, you have Roller Coaster. Even Colossus, the Fire Dragon, was a little bit janky just because it's not a permanent fixture. And then
we're not even going to mention Jetstar 2. Yes. Oh my god.
Well, that thing is just
that should be taken out.
But then you have the other side of the park where you have Cannonball and you have Primordial and you have like these massive investments and these technological masterpieces and some of the best amusement park knowledge in the business. So it's just a really interesting park because you have the history side, you have the janky side, and then you have the brand new, awesome, advanced side of the park. And then you put those 2 together, and that's what you get with Lagoon. My biggest issue that I have with Lagoon is, number one, it is a very spread out park. There's a lot of walking for the amount of coasters.
Yes.
Number 2, they need more water rides. Either a boat ride or a log flume or just a bigger water park or something. Because we tried to go ride the raft ride at the back of the park, and we got back there and it was like a 3-hour wait, and we're like, I am not waiting 3 hours for a goddamn raft ride.
We're hot, but we're not that hot.
Yes. And obviously being in Salt Lake City, Utah, it gets hot out there. They need some more rides to cool you off. The splash pad was nice. I will say that.
Yes. Oh my God, the splash pad was amazing. Me and Gabe were probably the only two adults walking around in there, but we did not care. It was honestly a great way to cool off because you could cool off your legs and stuff. And then Gabe was taking off his hat, getting his hat wet, and then I was getting my hair wet. So it actually was a great way to cool off. And it was situated in a very good spot too, because it was kind of, as Gabe said, this park is really spread out, and a lot of other parks, even if they're a little bit spread out, at least it's like a big loop, and you can kind of loop around and do all the rides.
Like back and forth.
I was going to say, it was kind of like half the rides were on one side, half the rides were on the other, and then two rides that we were kind of about were at the very, very, very back of the park.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is a lot of walking. And then there's some weird areas where there's like nothing but like buildings and restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
And you get that in every park, but it's kind of, they're strategically placed in between coasters, where these were just kind of like off in one corner of the park, kind of on their own. It was really weird.
Yes. It was very strange.
Layout of this park is just dumb. It's just, it obviously was not planned out very well. But obviously, I guess you can give your opinion on that.
No, yeah, I think from a ride standpoint, you're very right. It is sort of the tale of two parks, but I also think it's very well balanced. It has a good collection of kid rides if you do end up having younger kids that you do go with, but then it also has rides that are able to entertain your thrill seekers and stuff like that. I will say this, it wasn't of course like the most amazing food we have ever had, but there was like no one, and we went in the restaurant and we went like right at lunchtime. We were able to walk up, order, get our food, and it came out within like 10 or 20 minutes. So that was really nice. And the buildings there were air conditioned, so you could sit down in the air conditioning and eat. I will say this too, sometimes when you go to like a Six Flags park, it's hard to find like a table to sit at when you do want to eat. No problems here. There was places to sit down freaking everywhere. But then in terms of park layout, it's really kind of disorganized. It would be really nice. And as Gabe was saying, so that back section, basically it was like you had the front, one side, right side and left side where your roller coasters were. And then you kind of had this back section, which was the water park, the kids section, and then they had the two like family coasters, that's Bombora and the Bat, which me and Gabe rode for the credits. And then even further in the back was where the raft ride was. So we got back there, saw that line, and decided that was not for us. Well, so then we got into this
half an hour just walking back there.
Yeah, and then we got into that back section, and I got some coffee, Gabe got some ice cream, and it was right. It was cool because it was like an old Western town, and they had actual, like, it was almost like a museum, but it was like, in my opinion, there's no place for that in a theme park. Like, there was hardly anyone back there. The only places that were actually busy were the actual food places or the coffee place or the ice cream place. Like, bring that up front in the main section, and you could put so many rides back there.
I know. That being said, though, one thing I do want to start doing with our park coverage is what would you like to see as an addition? So I'll let you go first. Just kind of, and you can go as wild and as outlandish and crazy as you want, or you can be really realistic. I'm probably lead more towards the realistic. But what would you like to see kind of add to this park to maybe step it up a notch or put it, on the next level?
I do think, I don't know if this would really make it a next level, and part of it is just because I love them so much, but a B&M would actually be a really good addition. I feel like, especially considering that like something like a Hyper or something, because they do only have one ride that is over 200 feet. And if you put something in like a B&M compared to Cannibal, I feel like it would be a really good contrast. Like, you wouldn't end up with something that's too similar, especially if we were talking about how it kind of feels, although if we did a new Intimate, it probably wouldn't be too bad. But either that or another Woody. I could see GCI coming in and putting in another Woody, like a really super intense pacing monster. That would be nice too.
Yeah, I was actually going to go a little bit different route. So obviously this is a unique park. They're going to want something different, something unique. I was thinking an RMC Raptor track would be really, really good in this park.
Ooh.
And now the reason I say this is because they don't have a ton of airtime in this park. And they don't have they don't have something that kind of is that middle of the road. Like they have the extreme and then they have the family coaster. They don't kind of have like that mid to upper family to extreme. I feel like you could do that with an RMC Raptor track. It'd have to be a custom layout, so it couldn't be a clone. Yep. And then it would have to be something, a little bit different than what RMC has done in the past with their Raptor tracks. I'm thinking something more airtime focused, something with some more unique inversions that RMC does really, really well, like those weird barrel rolls and stuff like that. But I think that would be a really good addition to this park to add some airtime, add some more intensity, because obviously that's what they like to have here is intense, experiences. And then just to kind of have that little bit more of the middle of the road where it's above a family coaster, but it's not quite a cannibal level extreme coaster. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, that actually
I feel like that would do really well at this park. So, with that being said, though, this was definitely a fun time. Me and you had a great time. It was hot as hell, but we had a great time anyway.
Yes,
There's not very many parks we go to where we're like, okay, let's get the fuck out of here.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen for us, I guess. I don't know.
We've been hitting a lot of the really good ones. I mean, I feel like it's going to be hard because even if it's not like the best coaster we've ever ridden, we just like coasters so much. It doesn't take much to keep us happy.
We're very positive roller coaster enthusiasts.
But with that, we've come to the end of this special episode. Why don't we get into what is coming up for us?
What is coming up? I don't even know.
Well, so I moved some things around because our next special episode was supposed to be our honking, what we think is going to be a 2-parter, Son of Beast / Rattler.
That's bad.
So, our nostalgia factor is going to be our next episode, but then I moved up.
God, we keep putting that episode off, and I need to record that, and we need to release that. And it's going to be such a good episode.
I know. And then to give us a little bit of a break, especially since we're going to go into a very roller coaster heavy episode, we're going to get into our favorite non-coaster rides. And so mine and Gabe, we both have kind of a favorite.
Our childhood.
Yes. Oh. So I figured that'll give us a 2-episode break, and then we can get into what is literally going to be a beast of an episode. So
we have the nostalgia factor and the favorite non-coaster ride. That is like the definition of our childhood. It's like right there.
Actually,
those 4 rides, seriously.
That is actually hilarious. So that is what we got coming up next for us. With that, everybody, thank you for listening. Remember to check us out on the socials. We are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you'd like to email any kind of roller coaster suggestions or episode suggestions in general, our email is at coasterwarspodcast@gmail.com. It'll be in the description. But thank you, everybody, for listening.
Yes, thank you for putting up with us, and have a great day.